Good evening, everyone. This is Fehn and welcome to the monthly meeting of New Jersey Electric Vehicle Association. Today is Tuesday, June 11th, 2024, and we have good agenda today. We will take you through policy and through big electric trucks. And if you'd like to follow us at your own pace, please scan the QR code to access the presentation deck. So, as I mentioned, this is our agenda. I will go through some recent news about member report, about sponsors. And then Ashley Lynn will take you through our policy update. And then Paul Fehn, Director of EV Sales at Hunter Truck. He's our invited speaker, and he's going to take you through electrifying big trucks. And when I say big trucks, I mean really big. And then at the end, we are going to start talking about the next EV show season, which will be National Draft Electric Week. Again, this is the QR code if you would like to scan. So for those of you who are new here, I would just like to mention something about the Electric Vehicle Association. Our mission is to educate and advocate for the rapid adoption of electric vehicles. The Electric Vehicle Association, which was founded in 1967 as an Electric Auto Association, is North America's largest nonprofit that accelerates the adoption of electric vehicles by supporting about 100 chapters and thousands of members as they educate their communities about the benefits of driving electric. The MailChimp, our client for communication, has now over 26,000 subscribers. So we have really substantial reach. And we are involved in countless initiatives and projects throughout the US, and our national team coordinates and amplifies many of them for the public to see and experience. Membership updates. Over the last month, we didn't get any new members, but we got 2 renewals, Ken Jones and Lois Krause. And we are also very fortunate to welcome our second sponsor, Genesco Sports Enterprises. This is the company that is being hired by companies like BMW, Kia, and other car makers that runs their marketing campaign. And we provided them with marketing campaign in our recent electric vehicle show in Highland Park. You can see on the picture, they brought 2 BMW vehicles, and they were pretty successful. They had lots of foot traffic, and they got lots of awareness. As you can see, one of the vehicles had our Drive Electric flag attached to it. So that was very nice, and we are very grateful to them. Our recent events were Bike Rodeo and EV Show at Lawrence. It was organized by Mike Hornsby. We had also Arts and Eco Fair in Glen Ridge. The captain was Dennis Borzan. And last Saturday, we had 2 shows. We had first responder training, electric vehicle training in Jacobstown and Chesterfield, also by Mike Hornsby. And Mario Caballero, he was leading Bordentown Green Fair, the EV show section. This is, we were the last year. It's a beautiful area, lots of trees, and all the vehicles are under the beautiful trees. So it's a perfect combination. So now I would like to invite Ashley Lynn to give us a policy update. Ashley, take it away.
All right. So unfortunately, my camera is not working right now. Still have to forgive me. But to give you a quick update, the thing that has been on most people's minds here as EV drivers has been the fiscal year 2025 Charge of New Jersey program. So as the policy lead, I've been keeping everybody on target with that and making sure that we do, in fact, as an organization, have comments in, and we have, in fact, organized as an organization and submitted comments. So we, as an organization, have authored those and we have submitted them to the board. So if any members are interested in seeing what the organization has authored, and if you're interested, I have provided the docket number as well as the location where you can go and see those comments. In addition, if you're interested in authoring your own and you want to also submit your own personal perspective on how things are as an EV driver, you are more than welcome to do that as well. There's nothing that says that you cannot do that and also lend your own voice to it. The comment period actually closes tomorrow at 5 p.m. So if you're interested, don't miss out. You can either write a document, upload it, or put it directly to the public access public document search tool directly and actually have your comments directly posted on that website. So there's two ways for you to do that. So if you're interested, you're more than welcome to do so. So that's something that's kind of close to home for all of us here in the state of New Jersey. Kind of zooming out and kind of going up to from the state level all the way up to the national level. Back on June 3rd, the elected officials to protect America kind of zoomed through our state, and a couple of us went over to the New Jersey State House Annex. So that was Andy and myself, and we actually met up with our national policy lead, which is Kate Kroc, and we were able to support initiatives there at the state level. And so we were happy to kind of lend our aid there and kind of talk to a lot of different state legislatures, members, and a bunch of other individuals there who have been kind of talking about electric vehicle initiatives, as well as different types of charging access. And so there was a lot of really great individuals there who are trying to lend their aid and support to that. So they're going to be going all the way down the entire East Coast to kind of talk about electrification and charging initiatives. So that was on Monday, June 3rd. And kind of going into the same kind of timing, I guess you could say, also on June 3rd, there was a massive drop of funding from the federal government, where $1.3 billion was released by the Biden and Harris administration to actually support the expansion of electric vehicle charging infrastructure across the United States. Now, this is actually from the Charging and Fueling Infrastructure, or the CFI program, and that's administered by the Federal Highway Administration. So that's open to state, regional, tribal, local governments, and those applications are actually due all the way at the end of the summer on August 28th. But the best part is that because this is the single largest grant opportunity for electric vehicle charging, they're really trying to target how much access we have for charging. And this goes all the way back to the fact that in previous rounds of CFI funding, it benefited about 47 projects in 22 states, including Puerto Rico. And while they thought that they had a lot of funding, considering it was $622.6 million, they actually got 6 times the number of applications for the funding that was available, which is why they really tried to expand how much funding they had and what kind of projects they were targeting this time. And so the key difference this time is that those projects are going to be vying for a different piece of funding, where the maximum distance from an alternative fuel corridor location is actually increasing from 1 mile to 5 miles. They really want to make sure that they're making sure that as EV drivers, we really do have access, that you don't have to go terribly far to find charging access. And as we're kind of going from coast to coast, we have really good chargers where the uptime is not incredibly bad. So they're really trying to double down on those efforts right now. So that's the two major updates that you kind of have at the federal level and what's affecting our state on the horizon this summer. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. And I'm going to pass it right back to Stan.
Ashley, thank you so much for giving us the update. And I just thought that for the audiences that do not know much about the Charge Up New Jersey rebate program, if you could please briefly describe the history of it. What is the funding? What is the goal of it? And what was the actual proposal for this fiscal year 25 by BPU? And what is our take on it? And how are we trying to steer or recommend BPU what to do?
Yeah, absolutely. So as a quick kind of if I could turn back time, not to sound like Cher, but to kind of give a quick snapshot as to where we've gone. In January of 2020, Governor Murphy signed the EV Act into law, and that did a couple of things. We stated goals which was 330,000 EVs on New Jersey roads by December 31st of 2025. It stated that the NJ Transit needed to do a fair amount of upscaling in their forces, what we needed to do for overnight lodging establishments. It had a fair amount chock full of information in it. But what it also did was establish a pot of funding. And that pot of funding was for something called the Plug-in Electric Vehicle Incentive Fund. And not the greatest of acronyms, because there's a whole lot of vowels in there, not the greatest. The PFF doesn't actually make anything. And while we really love acronyms here in the state, what it did do is that it created a giant pot of money that's $30 million annually from something called the SBC, an acronym a lot of people should probably know. The SBC is the Societal Benefits Charge. And if you live in any apartment, any complex, any home, you all, as residents of the state of New Jersey, if you have electric that goes to your home, you pay into that. And that's a fund that every single resident in the state of New Jersey actually has to pay into, whether you want to or not. It's something that comes out of our electric bills. And by having the Societal Benefits Charge, we've all been paying into this for years. And as a unfortunate fact, the societal benefits charge for years was rated to kind of balance the general fund. And this has been an unfortunate fact for many years. And so for once we said, no, we want to use the societal benefits charge for what it's intended to do, to benefit the public, to do something for residents of the state of New Jersey. And so every single year now for 10 years, starting in 2020, $30 million is pulled from the societal benefits charge from that fund, and it goes into the plug-in electric vehicle incentive fund in order to fund electric vehicles, to give an incentive for individuals who want to make the switch and drive an electric vehicle. But as a function of that, it used to be $25 per all electrically fueled mile. And every single year, the board is allowed to change that amount based upon what they deem fit.
Ashley?
And it's kind of had a very long and sordid history. So this year, we've kind of issued comments based upon what it now has turned into, and we've decided that it should be different.
Just a brief question. You mentioned 30 million from the Societal Benefits Fund. What is
Correct.
the annual size of that fund? Just so that people have an idea.
What do you mean annual size of the fund?
Because as you mentioned, we all contribute to the fund, but the amount of money that is extracted every year is more than 30 million, right?
Well, just for the Charge of New Jersey, it's only $30 million that is pulled for us for the Charge of New Jersey incentive, for the plug-in electric vehicle incentive. But it's used for general fund, it's used for other things, it's used for energy efficiency programs.
I've heard that the total amount of the Societal Benefits Fund is around 500 million. Is it true?
I would need to see what the actual amount is and actually look into that for what this past year was, to be perfectly honest, since I don't have an actual number on it. I knew what it was 5 years ago, but I don't actually know what it is right now at present day. But I could probably find that number for you folks and give it to you if you're really interested, and I can look into the budgets because I know where to find that.
Sorry for interrupting. Keep going.
No, it's totally fine. You're totally allowed to ask those questions. But the short answer is that the incentive used to be, when it originally launched, $25 per all electrically fueled mile that each vehicle had, which allowed people to have up to $5,000 of an incentive. And every single year since the program launched, the BPU has been trying to kind of stretch that funding, since within a couple of months of the program opening, it closed. And while a lot of people were disgruntled about that for good reason, you want to have an incentive and have access to it. Having something that's stable is incredibly important. But the unfortunate reality was that the board kept making the incentive less in order to stretch the money further. Well, there's a lot of research and a whole lot of statistics that show that dropping the incentive doesn't really bridge the gap for a lot of people, and it doesn't actually do a whole lot. And so this year, what they had done is actually create a base incentive of $2,000 for this year of fiscal year 2025. They had created a base incentive of $2,000, just a flat, and then they created a low and moderate income add-on that would allow there to be a particular incentive for low and moderate income residents. But the low and moderate income tiers for either a single, joint household, or head of household actually mirrored what was used for the used clean vehicle incentive program actually at the federal level. And the difficulty that the New Jersey Electric Vehicle Association, us as a whole, had kind of seen with that was that that actually isn't something that was beneficial, since it doesn't actually target low and moderate income customers. It doesn't actually do anything to target that LMI population, and it was far too high. And since that adjusted gross income gap was very, very high, comparatively speaking, and it didn't go anywhere close to what we have in New Jersey, like New Jersey Family Care, Comfort Partners, LIHEAP, which is the Low Income Home Energy Assistance Program, or even the 2023 Affordable Housing Regional Income Limits by Household Size. It was far higher than any of those different programs that we had in the state. We said that the AGI should probably be much lower. No matter what the board chose, they did in fact need to lower it. So money that was designated and earmarked for LMI customers really did go to those customers. And as a whole, the incentive should probably be much higher, just so that way we're actually bridging that gap and bringing EVs into price parity, because no one's really going to want an incentive if it's not doing a little more than just bridging the gap to kind of cover that $1,000 punitive EV fee, and it's not actually giving you an incentive. It's just covering the money that they're taking out of your pocket anyway for the EV fee. It should really do more to bridge that gap for you folks. So we really wanted to advocate to make sure that you folks were getting a real electric vehicle incentive, and not just something where they give you money with the left hand and then take it back with the right, and then it's just kind of washing itself. So we really wanted to make sure that the comments were respective of that. And then the final thing was just to make sure that instead of just having year-over-year reductions, they actually added money to that plug-in electric vehicle incentive fund. So that way it didn't run out, and we didn't need to keep reducing the amount of the incentive every year, but that way they could work collaboratively with the governor's office, the legislature, and other entities to secure better funding. So it wasn't just $30 million, but it was something that actually worked for everybody. So we wanted to have this three-pronged approach to really have a robust incentive that didn't keep closing, but it actually served and worked for the residents of New Jersey.
Thank you, Ashley. And just for everyone to understand, Ashley used to work at BPU, and she authored correct me. You authored the rule, right, so to speak.
When the EV Act was originally written and signed into law by the governor, I was the person who wrote and stood up the Charge of New Jersey program when it originally launched. So from 2019 until 2022, I was with the board, and then I left. So I'm basically authoring program comments on something that I have since left. But I do in fact have the due diligence that I've checked New Jersey Ethics Commission. I am permitted to comment on it. It is completely above board. But yes, I did used to work on this.
I want to say that we are privileged that you are now volunteering with New Jersey EVA, because it enhances the value of the organization that we have. And as you hinted, we are trying to also represent the many drivers, electric vehicle drivers in New Jersey, because what is happening now this year, how the state is now trying to raid the funding and make punitive fee against the electric vehicle owners, it only brings more opportunities to create organization to represent us, the EV drivers. Ashley, thank you so much for the policy update. Do you have anyone, any questions?
Hey, Stan, I just want to say that it's great that Ashley's here, because I was really a pain in the rear end when this program first started. And it was glad that she was there, because she was able to handle my complaints and took care of me so I could get my $5,000. So most appreciative of her for her patience.
I want to make sure that EVs are for everyone, John. That's actually the most important thing. It's like there needs to be a bridging of this price parity gap, and it doesn't matter if it's low, moderate, or anybody of a customer when you're at an income level. If they're trying to make something that says that it's for everyone and they're targeting these different income levels, or if you're talking about all these different incentive types, I really want to make sure that we're talking about EVs are for everybody. So I'm really glad that you cared enough to even write in the first place, because that's what we need. We need EV drivers that care. So it's a good thing that we've got people like you in the organization to begin with. So thanks for being here.
Nice to say that it wasn't a pain in the ass. So.
Any other questions or comments? Praises?
Hi, Ashley. Hi, Stan. It's Vanessa. I have a question in regards to comments submitted. We have a deadline for tomorrow. What exactly should be a focus? So this would be the first time I would even comment. So I don't even know where to start or what am I actually focusing. I don't want to make a comment of something that's not really going to be heard.
You're not required to make a comment if you don't want to. Since we've already commented, you're more than welcome to click on that QR code and then click on the link. I've actually hyperlinked within our slide deck the exact website it'll bring you to for the public document search. And then you'll be able to see the exact comments that the NJEVA has actually authored and read them yourself from start to finish. They're about 5 pages long. If you would like to piggyback on any of those thoughts, you have a spark of genius, by all means, feel free. If it speaks to you and you want to expand upon one of those points, you are more than welcome to do so. But we don't think that you need to author anything that is outside of your wheelhouse. If you want to talk about something that is close to your heart, do so. But it's not that you have to author anything in addition unless it's something that you really want to talk about. So don't feel like it's a requirement. It's like if you have something that you really want to talk about, then please feel free to do so. You're not barred from doing so just because we authored comments already. It's more of a, in addition to, you are empowered to do so, if that makes sense.
Vanessa,
Yes.
and if you agree with our comments, by any means, join New Jersey EVA to support
Thank
us.
you.
Other questions, other comments? Well, if not, I would like to thank Ashley again. And let's move to the next part of our presentation. I would like to welcome Paul Fehn. Paul, take it away.
Thank you, Stan, and thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here, happy to have the opportunity to talk to you guys about, as you said, the electrification of really big trucks. So my name is Paul Fehn. I'm the Director of Electric Vehicle Sales for Hunter Truck. And Stan, you can move the slide deck one. And for the record, at least the family, we do have an EV. My wife owns the EV. I travel all over Kingdom Come and still got a very good gas engine. So unfortunately, there's a gas engine parked outside the hotel right now. But Hunter Truck is the Northeast's largest heavy-duty commercial vehicle dealer. We sell strictly the Peterbilt product. For those that don't know, as far as a brand goes, Peterbilt is the premier truck brand in the marketplace. So it's like your Cadillac or your Mercedes, or pick your premium brand. We started out in 1938 in Eau Claire, Pennsylvania, as a single service facility by one gentleman by the name of Homer Hunter. And we remain now, over 80 years later, a family-owned organization. The third generation of ownership is at the helm, and the fourth generation is involved at this point. We are headquartered out near Pittsburgh in Butler, Pennsylvania, but we have locations through the 4 states that you see on your screen there, including 2 in New Jersey, one in Clarksburg, which is right by Six Flags Great Adventure, and the other in Pennsville, which is right by the Delaware Memorial Bridge. Next slide, please. So Hunter Truck has been in the electrification game for commercial vehicles since late 2020. And that may not sound like very long, but these vehicles only went into production in the marketplace from any OEM starting in 2021. And Peterbilt was actually the first manufacturer to do so. And all major commercial vehicle OEMs now have electrified products in the marketplace at these class ratings. But we were there at the beginning. We're proud to say we delivered the first Peterbilt EV into the Northeast. It went into service up in Syracuse, New York, back in 2022. And that's the picture you see in the background there. And then we've continued deliveries since then. The most latest is the one you see in the foreground, again, to a customer in New York. We do have vehicles coming to customers in New Jersey. They will be in service later this year, refuse collection vehicles, but we have not put a vehicle into service in New Jersey just yet. We're also proud to say that we've helped our customers get over $3.4 million in grant funding. And grant funding is very important because these vehicles are exceedingly expensive. And with having been in the game for so long, we now are proud to say we're Peterbilt's preferred EV service facility in the region. So our New Jersey facilities, as well as our New York facility, are fully electric certified technicians, fully tooled, chargers installed, the whole 9 yards. Next slide, please. And so when you're thinking about heavy duty trucks and why we're going to try and electrify these on a per unit basis, the impact of a truck relative to a vehicle is substantial. As you see here on the slide, medium and heavy duty trucks account for less than 10% of the vehicles on the road, but they account for more than 20% of the emissions from the transportation sector. And the transportation sector is the largest contributor to greenhouse gas emissions in the United States. And so if you're going to have any kind of impact on reducing GHG emissions in this country, you need to address trucks. And we are happy to be a part of that. Next slide, please. So how do you electrify these trucks? Well, in the passenger vehicle space, most people use cars really the same way. They're always on highway, probably between 25 and 65 mile an hour roads, used for short bursts at a time, mostly a few thousand miles a year. That's not the case with trucks. Trucks have very specialized and a very broad section of applications. And so it's an exceedingly difficult challenge to try and electrify these. And it's very, very important when we're talking about the first iterations of product into the marketplace that we focus on the right application. Oftentimes when people think about the big trucks that we're talking about here, they think over the road sleeper tractors, going across country. And a lot of trucks do that, somewhere near almost half of those on the road. However, there's a very large number of trucks that don't do that, that are some form of another tool to get a job done. Anything that you're looking around in your house or your office or wherever you are right now at the screen that you're on, that was all on a truck at some point in time. The materials to build the building that you're sitting in, again, all on a truck at some point in time, probably multiple times in the case of the materials. And so the applications that we're looking for are the ones at the very low end of the truck spectrum right now. We want less than 200 miles driven each day. There are trucks out there that do this. We're very range constrained right now, but we do have trucks out there that we can electrify. We're looking for applications that cube out, and that means the space of the payload gets filled before it reaches its maximum weight capabilities. Less than truckload, which is what LTL stands for, or diminishing load. So you start full at the beginning of your route and product comes off throughout the route so that you start heavy and end light, therefore protecting range as opposed to diminishing it more over time. We also want to find start and stop duty cycles. That takes advantage of the regenerative braking capabilities of this vehicle, but it also happens to be a weak point for diesel engines. The diesel engines of today have a lot of what we call after treatment systems on them that clean the emissions that come out of the block before they go out the exhaust stack. And those systems really require the vehicle to get hot for them to operate properly. But there are a lot of applications that start-stop duty cycles apply to where the truck just can't get hot. And one of the best examples of this would be refuse collection. Those trucks get up to 15 miles an hour. Every 200 yards, they stop. That's a very demanding application on today's diesel engines, and it creates a lot of service headaches. It's actually a great spot for EV. As you all know here, you've got instant torque out the gate, and the more start stop you do, the more use of regen you make. And so that is good. And then the final thing we want to look for are applications that return home every night. Heavy trucks cannot yet really survive on the public charging infrastructure that is out there. All we need is a CCS1 plug and a charger to have 700 volts or greater output. So we can charge on Electrify America Charge Point on the public charging that exists. However, that charging is often physically designed to accommodate passenger vehicles, namely with pull-in charging. And so trucks cannot charge in those sorts of layouts. And so customers that are looking to electrify their trucks really need to put this depot charging in behind their fence or in front of their fence, but at their location, which is a whole new scope of project for them. There are some public charging specifically for trucks that is starting to get underway. There are some truck stop companies that are starting to look at putting in EV charging at new truck stops and switching over some facilities. There's a whole ingress and egress differentiation there. And ultimately, at the end of the day, further down the road for what we're looking for to make this viable on a broader scale, we're talking about significantly more higher power charging than what's out there today. So there are some challenges. Right now, we need folks to put it in their own depots. Next slide, please. And so these are the vehicles that we have available. And it's a good snapshot of what is available across the whole commercial vehicle industry. Peterbilt's the only OEM to have 3 models electrified, but every OEM out there has 2 of these electrified. These are the types that everybody's shooting for. So we've got a day cab tractor over there on the left, and that's got a 5th wheel, pulls a trailer of various types. In the middle, we've got a heavy-duty chassis. That's called a low cab forward, the design of that cab, and that's specifically designed for refuse. But we could put other bodies on that as well. And then over on the right, we've got our medium duty truck, which is called a cab over, and we can put various body styles on the back of that. Next slide, please. And so to get in the specs of the vehicles, starting with the medium duty, this vehicle is offered in a class 6 or 7 weight rating, and we power this with a midship motor. So there's one big single electric motor up between the frame rails towards the front of the vehicle that has a traditional drive shaft back to a traditional set of rear axle, which allows for speccing flexibility, wheelbases for various body integrations. We offer this in 3 wheelbases for bodies of 3 sizes. 24-foot, 26-foot, and 30-foot bodies. From a power perspective, on the Class 6 vehicle, it's a 355 horsepower equivalency peak power, 265 kilowatts. Relative to diesel, on a diesel engine, you would see in this truck no more than probably 260 horsepower. So from a power perspective, it is there and then some. And the same is true in Class 7. The peak power in the Class 7 is 350 kilowatts. It's a 469 horsepower equivalency. And again, you're looking at probably 300 horsepower from a diesel equivalent. So it will, as I like to tell our customers, beat a diesel up a hill all day, every day. We offer this in 3 ranges, 100 miles, 150 miles, and 200 miles from 3 different size battery packs, 141 kilowatt hours, 209, or 282. Those ranges are they're a pretty good marker for what's available out there in the medium duty space across all OEMs. There is a weight penalty on these of about 3,000 pounds. And that's important because, again, these are commercial tools. They move goods, and the goods are what make the companies that own these money. So less payload is less money for each vehicle. The charge time on these, for this particular model, we can charge this with level 2. High-end level 2, you're looking at 19.2 kilowatts is what we would need. But you could do about an 8 to 10 hour charge time on the small to medium-sized battery pack on AC charging in this particular vehicle. But should you want to for DC charging, we're looking at just less than 1 hour for minimum charge time. Next slide, please. Now, on the heavy-duty chassis, we switch up our powertrain. We're using what we call E-axles here, which is closer to what you see in most passenger vehicles. You've got an electric motor right on the axle, right attached to the pumpkin there, and there's one on each of the tandem axles. So there's 2 motors on this truck. This is an 80,000-pound GVWR truck available in 2 wheelbases. And the reason we have those 2 wheelbases is to accommodate an EPTO. And that's an important spec consideration for these trucks. PTO stands for power takeoff. EPTO is electric power takeoff. Oftentimes, trucks like this have bodies that do some sort of work. In the case of refuse, they lift bins, they pack the trash back. But you can put all kinds of bodies on the back of these trucks that do various jobs, pumps, cranes, whatever it might be. It's very important that these trucks have the ability to power those body apparatus. However, anytime you're pulling power off these traction batteries to power some sort of apparatus on the body, you're reducing the range of the vehicle. So from a power perspective on this particular vehicle, we've got a peak power of 500 kilowatts. That's 670 horsepower. Diesel equivalent, you are not going to put more than 450 horsepower engine into this truck on the diesel side of things. So again, very powerful. The range here is 80 to 120 miles, and that includes 1,100 bin cycles. And what I mean by bin cycles is if you've got a trash truck that comes by your house that reaches out, picks up the bin, dumps it, puts it back down. That's one bin cycle. So we can do 80 to 120 miles and 1,100 of those bin cycles before we need to recharge. And we do that with a 400 kilowatt hour battery pack. In this case, you're looking at about a 6,000 pound weight penalty versus a comparable diesel. So you can put a lot less payload onto this truck relative to its diesel equivalent. And AC charging is really not feasible for daily operations for this truck. You're pretty much going to have to install a DC fast charger. Next slide, please. So for the day cab tractor, it's actually the identical powertrain to the truck I just showed you. This one can be rated at 82,000 pounds gross vehicle weight rating. We can put EPTO functionality on this vehicle as well. Power ratings are the same, and the range here is 150 miles. Again, from that 400 kilowatt hour battery pack. That's the same range that previous vehicle would have if there were no body functions throughout its route. 6,000 pound weight penalty here as well. And again, customers are going to need to install DC fast chargers to support daily operations of these vehicles. Next slide, please. We also sell chargers. We offer the ABB product line, white labeled under the PACCAR brand. And PACCAR is the parent company to Peterbilt, the vehicle brand that we offer, as well as Kenworth, another heavy-duty truck vehicle brand, and their European brand is DAF. We're very familiar with selling parts to support the trucks that we sell. Selling chargers to support the trucks is a change for us, but it's one that we have welcomed. We offer anything from 19.2 kilowatt AC chargers all the way up to 350 kilowatt chargers that have a power cabinet separate from dispensers and anything in between. And we really need all these tools available to us and to our customers because the charging game in this space is very, very much about right sizing. You don't just want to put in the most powerful charger. If you're only going to use one charge cycle or one charge cycle equivalent in your routing for the day, and then that truck's going to be home on depot charging for the next 8 to 10 hours, we want to make sure that we're carrying out that charge as long as possible to mitigate your utility bill increases and also keep the vehicle awake for as long as possible and the batteries all warmed up and ready to go by the time your driver gets in the next morning to start his next day's route. Next slide, please. So for our customers that want to explore electrifying their fleet, there are a lot of new partners in the game that they need to become familiar with. Typically, in a diesel truck world, when our customers want a truck, the truck piece, the picture that you see here is all that they would have to focus on. They call a guy like me, I take their money and give them a truck. It was that simple. But now, when we're talking about the EV space, they have to look at everything you see on this screen. So they have to engage with their utility. They're likely going to have to upgrade the electrical service to their facility and lay new conduit to charging pads throughout their facility. And they're going to need to get chargers and install them at their depots. And all of that needs to happen in addition to, and actually before they take delivery of the vehicle. And then somewhere in the middle of that is this grant funding piece, which is very, very important here because, as I mentioned earlier, these vehicles are exceedingly expensive, up to and sometimes exceeding 2.5 times their diesel equivalent. So the whole grant funding piece of this is a new element for us that we, again, have embraced. And in the state of New Jersey, there have been good programs available. Through the DEP, there have been some competitive grants for municipal entities. The NJEDA and their NJZIP program has had 2 phases of somewhere around $175,000 towards a Class 8 vehicle available. And then through the IRA, Inflation Reduction Act, these vehicles are approved for the $40,000 tax credit, and the charger installations can be awarded a up to $100,000 per site tax credit as well. So there is money out there to support this, but getting it and using it with all these new partners is a very new thing for commercial vehicle customers and operators. Next slide, please. And it's a whole new process for them, as I said. Typically, they would start at the bottom of the screen there. You see that order a truck. That's all they really ever had to worry about. They'd order the truck, and 6 to 8 months later, they'd have it. They'd put it to work. Today, they've got to go all the way back and start by assessing their fleet in a way they never have before. So commercial vehicle operators are used to looking at their fleets from a fuel efficiency perspective as a function of cost and trying to save cost. What they need to do now is go back and look at their fleet from an energy efficiency perspective as a function of operation. Where can I take one of these and put it into service? And then what are the vehicles that are available to me in order to do that? What charging might that need? Now I have to design this whole project, start looking at the gear. Once you have that figured out, then you've got to bring grant funding into the equation, and that's going to lengthen the entire process and put its own timeline on it. And once grant funds are awarded, if they're awarded, that's when we order a truck. We get into permitting, we get some charger and some gear coming. We talk about installation and get to work on that and eventually commission the charger. And you're looking at a buying process of somewhere between 6 to 18 months. And very much so, more often than not, on the long side of that, the 18-month side. So that's a very long process for companies that oftentimes haven't looked that far ahead in their planning. Very much in the truck world, we've got customers that respond to contracts and market fluctuations, availability, freight markets, whatever it might be. To try and plan 18 months into the future is difficult for these guys. So there are some challenges associated with converting our customers. Next slide, please. And here are the economics. And I saw a question there pop up. That we can address that here at the end. I didn't get a chance to read it before it dipped down. But right now, today, the cost of one of these vehicles without subsidies is 2.5 times its diesel equivalent. We do expect in the future that that truck cost is going to drop on a battery electric pretty substantially. One, with the increase in battery technology and the dropping of that cost, but also with the efficiencies in manufacturing. We do expect that, and scaling, we do expect that the price will drop pretty substantially. At the same time, we also anticipate that the price of diesel trucks is going to go up. They are going to see some more stringent emissions regulations in the very near future here. And that's going to make those engines much more complicated and much more expensive because of it. And so cost parity is going to get a little bit closer on the truck side. On the energy side, electricity is a cheap fuel. Diesel is an expensive fuel. And we expect over time, diesel is going to increase in price, and electricity probably will as well, but that delta is probably going to stay the same. What you don't see here is maintenance cost. As you all probably know, EVs are cheaper to maintain. There's less moving parts. We don't have solid data from the truck world yet. Again, these things have only been in production, in real world operation at production level for less than 5 years. But from what we have seen so far and what we've seen in the transit space, the bus space, which is a little bit more mature than we are, we do expect about a 40% reduction in maintenance costs as well. And so when you roll all that together, total cost of ownership today for a battery electric truck, again, without subsidies, is substantial relative to a diesel. With the right kind of subsidies, we do have some customers that can start to get this to pencil out, but that's a challenge today. But in the future, we do expect, as it is with the passenger vehicle space, that the total cost of ownership on an electric vehicle will one day be lower than diesel. And at that point, we're off to the races on transitioning. Next slide, please. So battery electric is going to have its limitations in our space. As I mentioned, it's just such a broad segment of applications to serve. I do believe, and I'm not alone in this, that battery electric is going to continue to improve as a product and eat out the bottom of the applications, the easiest ones, and sort of get to those mid-range applications and be able to satisfy those pretty well. But the long-range applications are still kind of a question mark. And this is one possible solution that's coming down the pike. Peterbilt is going to have a hydrogen fuel cell truck begin production in 2025. We are currently accepting deposits for this and have 2 build slots actually reserved at this point. And as you see here, you can read the specifics on the screen, but we use a Toyota hydrogen fuel cell to create electricity that then powers the batteries and the electric motor. Next slide, please. And so for our customers that are interested in this, or that if my guys are doing what they should be doing, or we're trying to sell on this, these are the things that we think they should be doing. First, dedicate personnel. This is a major shift in your operations. We are very plainly asking you to do less with something that costs substantially more. That's not really efficient for businesses. And there's a lot in doing it properly to understand. It's a whole new marketplace, new vehicles, new products, new entrants into the market. There are new OEMs that we've never had to compete against before. Now we're talking about chargers and different charger OEMs, utility interconnections. It's a lot, and it's enough for a full-time job. And really, fleets should dedicate people to this. The OEMs have dedicated people. The dealers have dedicated people. Even the utilities have dedicated fleet people now. And the fleets need to dedicate people as well. Fleets should also deploy pilots. There's only so much a guy like me or any guy like me in this role can tell you about how this is going to work in your operations with your weight considerations, your drivers, your routes, your hills, your 12 months of temperature swings, whatever it might be. You need to get one of these and begin to learn about it yourself, because a lot of people will say in the commercial vehicle space, this is coming. I would say this is here. And part of that is number 3, folks need to begin to strategize for regulatory compliance. In the commercial vehicle space in the state of New Jersey, beginning in 2025, our diesel sales are tied to our ZEV sales volumes, and our ZEV sales volumes must precede our diesel sales. So what that means, practically speaking, is the availability for new diesel trucks is going to become restricted, and New Jersey is not the only state to have adopted this. So there are some serious implications if people don't begin to prepare for this a few years into these regulations, and there's really not going to be diesel trucks available to do the everyday work of our economy if folks aren't beginning to transition their fleet and buying into the ZEV products. And then finally, the final thing we recommend to our customers is engage their new fuel providers. As you all know, and as I like to remind my customers, the electric vehicle is still a vehicle, right? It's a little bit different of a technology on there, but it's a perfectly fine vehicle that can do the work. I'm still giving my customers a truck. At the end of the day, what they're changing is their fuel. And so they need to engage their new fuel provider and make sure that they give the electric utilities as long of a runway, as long of a line of sight as they can, because I think the number is somewhere around 10 of my trucks to charge overnight at a depot would equate to a stadium's worth of power. And that's a serious project for utility that they need years to prepare for. And so we need to have fleets begin now to raise their hand to the electric providers and say, hey, I'm going to need some serious electricity over here in the coming years. And that's beginning to happen, but it needs to happen at a better pace to make sure that this transition is as smooth as possible. Next slide, please. And I think that's the last one. So with that, I'd be happy to take any questions. I'm going to pull up the chat here and see what this one was. Price tags more apply, running costs much less. If you include all expenses, how would it be?
Thank you so much for this wonderful presentation. It was very insightful. I learned a lot. I had some question, but I swallowed it. So before I recall that question, I would like to offer anyone else in the audience if they have any questions.
Hi, Paul. Thank you very much for all the valuable information. Actually, my business is we did things a little bit backwards. We started with the electric vehicles and then are now trying to get the infrastructure because we've come across a lot of problems. So all the information you gave, I just realized we did things backwards as a business. Now, all the projections you have there about the DC fast charging times, are these based on what kind of output of a charging station? And then two, you said you offer ABB. Is that the only brand that you guys work with in regards to DC fast charging stations?
So the maximum input the truck can take would be around 135 kilowatts. So those charge times I showed are anything about 120 kilowatt charger and greater. As far as charger brands, we offer the ABB product. We also offer some Heliox products through our own parts departments, but our vehicles are interoperable with really any charger out there. If it's not one we've tested for, and we would check this in the sales process, we would do some interoperability testing either before the vehicle is deployed to you, before you actually sign on the dotted line and give me a check, or if we can with some sort of test vehicle at a facility somewhere, but that's oftentimes difficult to coordinate. But all we need on the charger side for the vehicle is a CCS1 plug and 700 volts or more from the charger.
Yes, thank you.
Now, is that a 700 volts DC? So
from the charger, yes.
So DC. All right. What about in case of AC charging? Would that be possible? Just like the Tesla or the Leaf or those cars? They are the AC charging if it is not supercharged.
Yeah, so actually all our vehicles will have an onboard AC charger from the factory. And the only one where it's really viable for daily operations would be our medium duty product on the smaller battery sizes. In that case, if you've got a 19.2 kilowatt AC charger, which is the absolute ceiling of level 2, then you can charge the vehicle overnight on AC charging. Now, if you're talking about the chargers that you putting into like your garages or something in the 8 kilowatt range, that's not going to be viable for daily operations on any of our vehicles. And it would probably take you a week to charge one of the heavy vehicles on one of those.
I see. Well, if you apply AC, how much would the voltage be? Would that be 240 volts or more than that?
It's a 240 volt input to the AC chargers. Those 19.2 chargers usually just need a 100 amp dedicated circuit with 240 volt service.
Yeah. So 240 volts and 100 amps.
Correct.
Okay, gotcha. I see.
I just want to add that I'm also electrifying fleet, and just Alex, 100 amp circuit means that the charging station delivers 80 amps. Okay, but that's how you get 19.2. But I just want to add that utilities don't want to offer 240 volts for commercial setting. They always say, oh, we'll give you 3-phase 208, right? And that essentially means that it's 16.6 kilowatts because the onboard charger is current limited. It's not power limited, it's current limited. And because the utility will not give you 240 volts, they give you 208, then the power is actually lower. And, I had to swallow the pill pretty much because all of our charging stations will be derated because of that. But we are still okay with the shuttle buses, okay? But for the big trucks, I was actually surprised, Paul, when you said that they can do only 135 kilowatts, because the bigger battery, the faster it should be able to charge. Do you have the company has something in the future lineup to charge a little bit faster than 135?
We do, and there are some on the market that can charge quicker than that today. So there's one particular manufacturer that can charge at 350 kilowatts on the vehicle side, but they do that through 2 charger plugs. And then you've got Tesla, who is in the commercial vehicle space with their semi. They are keeping their footprint very, very small for deliveries right now. One customer, and they're starting to deliver to others, keeping it right in California, right outside of their factory for servicing. But they're charging that, they're calling it megawatt, but they're charging that at about 750 kilowatts. As far as our vehicles are concerned, our next gen vehicles will be able to charge at 350 kilowatts, and they will have more battery configurations available. The problem is more batteries is more weight, and so less payload. And so that there becomes a trade-off. What is the point that doesn't net out anymore?
Yeah, that is given. And I hate when some dealers are saying that they are waiting for another magic technology with batteries that will eliminate the energy density. And I'm always telling them, hey, you guys have to remember that battery is not just the fuel, the lithium. It is actually, it's storing the spent fuel. It is storing the oxygen. And when you are charging, it's actually just fuel recycling, right? So imagine that your diesel truck would have its own oxygen tank and would be collecting carbon dioxide and the moisture that is also a byproduct. And when you go to a gas station, instead of asking for new diesel, you would be asking the attendant to recycle the carbon dioxide back to diesel and to do it in 5-10 minutes, right? So.
Yeah, it's there's only so far the technology is going to go. We need some better products, and I do believe there's a lot of smart people working on them, and there's a lot of companies with deep pockets that are reaching very far down into those pockets to do this, but it's only going to go so far.
Yeah, and when you think about the history of cargo, and actually how it works elsewhere in the world, the rail transportation is so much better for cargo transport, because the biggest energy expenditure is actually rolling resistance because of the weight, right? Mm-hmm. And so the rolling resistance steel on steel, which is the rail, is much smaller versus rubber on pavement. And when you couple it with the efficiency gains through the electric powertrain, then I read some studies that apparently it's 5 times cheaper to run rail transportation than road transportation. And then, of course, when you electrify the train, you don't need the battery. You just, you have overhead line, and the rail is the ground. So that's how lots of countries in Europe deal with the transport. But to electrify rail and to bring rail on scale to United States is kind of right hard to imagine. But and then comes the hydrogen, as you mentioned, which is not going to be cheap.
It is not cheap.
Not even as a fuel, right? Do you have any estimation what would be the cost per mile versus electric and versus diesel for hydrogen?
So what I can tell you is based on averages today, national averages, your fueling with electricity is going to be like being able to buy your diesel fuel at $2 a gallon. National average for diesel fuel is somewhere around $4.50 to $5 a gallon. And in today's prices, fueling with hydrogen is somewhere around $17 a gallon of an equivalent.
Oh my goodness,
yes.
That's brutal.
Yes.
That's not 2x. That's 4x. I know.
Yes.
That's brutal. And we are not even talking about the green hydrogen at this point.
Correct.
Right?
But again, There are very smart people working on it in organizations with very deep pockets. The regulations I mentioned are no joke. These are serious regulations that are going to have an impact as early as 6 months from today, that are really going to force the transition on the commercial side, which is easier for regulatory authorities to do. It's very hard to say this is what you need to do for personal property. It's a lot easier to say these are the thresholds you have to meet to do business, and they're doing it. We need to. I'm not kidding. Our diesel truck sales across the board for any OEM in the state of New Jersey are going to be severely restricted. These regulations are already in effect in California, and California is on pace this year to sell less than a third of its annual total truck sales volumes because of these regulations, because they're tying diesel sales to the number of zero emissions vehicles being sold in the marketplace.
Paul, how is China doing it?
Well, they're doing it with a state-run economy, which is it's an easier tool to manipulate. So China is ahead for a lot of the same reasons that they are in the passenger vehicle space. They own the entire EV supply chain right now. They've invested in that for the last few decades, and they've got it all from the mines in Africa or South America for the raw materials to the refining to the production of the batteries. BYD, making the passenger vehicles out there, they are the largest commercial vehicle manufacturer in the world.
And that's called vertical integration, right?
Yes, they are beginning to sell their products over here as well. And so that's why a lot of the grants that are now available, the IRA credits and whatnot, everything's really tied to Buy America requirements, which helps. I will also say that in the commercial vehicle space, to just show you a bit of a commitment to it, you've got competitors, PACCAR and Daimler, who makes Freightliner. These are competitors, old school competitors as well. Between them, I think there's something like 60 or 70% of the market for commercial vehicles. They've partnered up with Cummins, the engine manufacturer, to build a battery manufacturing facility here in Mississippi. They're breaking ground on that this year. And those batteries will go into production in 2027. So you've got two of the largest vehicle manufacturers and their engine provider.
And these will be NMC batteries or
these
LFP?
Will be LFP batteries.
LFP. Mm-hmm.
So we have LFP on our trucks right now. Some of the other vehicles in the marketplace, which advertise longer ranges on the tractor, are using NMC today, but
right, because
generally speaking,
they have higher density. So
they do, but there's properties that LFP offers that is better for the commercial vehicle space, right. Namely high C rates that
and more
LFP
cycles
supports better. And so the industry is moving towards LFP.
Mm-hmm. Vanessa, your green power is LFP. Okay, you probably know it. Okay.
Thank you. I'm sorry. I'm seeing my daughter's basketball.
Yeah. Awesome. Other questions, guys? Well, if there are no other questions, yes,
I have one question, Stan. For regular EVs, it's recommended that we not charge regularly on superchargers. So what would be the lifespan of a battery on trucks that rely on supercharging?
So with LFP chemistry, and assuming that you're using high rates of charge, we would still say you've got about 4,000 cycles minimum on that battery until you get to 80% state of health. So if a customer is fast charging once a day in a typical 250-day work year, those 4,000 cycles get you well beyond 10 years. That said, we do recommend that at least once a week, if you can, give it some time to take a low C rate and do what's called balance the batteries out, because high C rates will put the batteries out of balance. But we understand that in the applications that we need to serve, customers are going to have to charge quickly. And so it's just a reality of what we've got to live with.
Thank you.
I have a few more questions, please. Very quick questions. Now, would that be possible to use three-phase AC, the charging, instead of the single phase? And three-phase would be much more powerful and so easier to for quick charging, even if at the home or
Good question.
So on the chargers that I showed you on the screen there, everything but one requires three-phase input.
I'm sorry, there's a three-phase input?
Those chargers require three-phase input.
Three-phase,
charger,
not
yes.
a single phase. I see. Okay.
So they are essentially European type, because in Europe they have three-phase electricity.
I see. So what you meant is three-phase 240 volts and then 100 amps.
Well, no, 240 is actually only like a one phase, but can you do the three-phase 208? Because that would actually give you more than 19.2 then. Let me do the math.
So on the level 2 charger, it's a single phase input 240. There is a low powered DC charger that we offer that can take three-phase 208, but then generally speaking, as we get into the bigger things around that 50 kilowatt marker and above on the DC fast chargers, you're talking about 480 three-phase input.
Right.
So 480.
Yes.
I see. Okay. Another question is the gearbox. Do you still need the gearbox for the truck as well, or you don't need the gearbox or the transmission?
A transmission. Okay. So there is, on the medium duty product, there is no transmission.
No transmission. Gotcha. All right.
On the heavy duty products, there are transmission. There's a two-speed transmission on each axle.
I see. Okay.
But the driver does not have shifting capabilities. That's all computerized.
No computerized. Thank you very much, sir. Well,
okay.
I'm sorry. I just cannot imagine how the torqueful, the powerful that the truck could be if it is EV comparing to the diesel. But because diesel trucks or the gas truck, they start very slow and shift up the gearboxes. But since it is EV, the motor's torque is very flat from the speed 0. And so could we expect that the much faster acceleration? Is that right?
Absolutely.
Gotcha.
Absolutely. They accelerate very quickly. They accelerate upgrade much more quickly. They pull better, again, because you've got a flat torque curve on an EV.
Right.
So the torque curve of a diesel engine kind of it goes off maybe around 45 degrees from the axis there, and then levels out for peak torque, usually around, I don't know, the middle of the graph, just to visualize, and then dips back down. And that's why you need to shift through all those gears in
the power band is very, very narrow. For
exactly. While it's the whole band on the electric motor.
I see. Thank you, sir.
Okay. If we have no more questions, I have a few more slides, and I would like to really thank Paul again. It was very, very insightful.
Thank you.
So we are actually entering kind of limbo season, because in the summer we typically don't have EV shows because it's very hot and people don't go out just as easily unless it's a beach. But stay tuned. We will have National NJEVA Electric Week that formally starts on September 27th until October 6th, which spans 2 weekends. But we have already some events lined up. One is actually in August in Metuchen. It's going to be Metuchen Green Fair on Sunday, August 18th, and Alex Brown is going to lead it. And then on on Saturday, September 21st, the week before National Drive Electric Week, but we will bundle it as a National Drive Electric Week campaign anyway. It's going to be Green Fest in Newark. We did that last year, except that last year was rain, and they moved everything indoor. So we had a table indoor with some flyers, but for our organization, the best show is outdoor, of course, with all our wonderful electric vehicles. And we have one event booked up formally, the Highlands Green Fair and EV Show in Clinton. It will be on Saturday, September 28th from 11 to 2, and the captain will be Mario Caballero. Just a reminder that our events are posted on our website, and the website is linked with our calendar. The calendar is based on newjerseyeva@gmail.com. And if you have Android, you scan the QR code on the left side, and you should be able to import the calendar into your device. If you have iPhone, you can scan the QR code on the right side to get the calendar on your phone. And that way, you will be always up to date what's going on. Some of the events that we put into calendar are in person. Some of them are virtual, including our monthly Zooms. Some events are actually someone else's, like presentations or state agencies when they have hearing or something. We are not 100% diligent with that. We actually didn't post the hearing of Board of Public Utilities that Ashley was referring to earlier today. But yeah, so stay tuned. Our next meeting will not be in July because we are taking off. But our next Zoom meeting will be in August 13th. It's a Tuesday at 7 p.m. And we hope that our invitation will be accepted. I mean, we invited Sio Kashevi. It's our first sponsor. So that's what I have for today. And I'm going to stop the recording right now.